Chris Duffin sitting down with the Rhino, Stan Efferding, world's strongest bodybuilder. So I always enjoy sitting down with Stan. We've had a few good discussions over the last few days. One of the things we were talking about was lifestyle. Like, you know, you've been in, you know, as you've done your career, you've been in a unique situation where you could really focus on it a lot more than somebody that's doing it as a pastime. And I'm kind of in this, almost getting in the same situation myself now, where I can preach stuff that maybe the average person isn't able to do. Like, right. Does that make us hypocrites?
Well, you know, I've often said that you know, why I'm a hypocrite, because I had an opportunity to train with some of the best people, and you know, that's not cheap. And I had an opportunity to spend you know, around the clock, focused, eat, breathe, sleep, and think my bodybuilding or powerlifting, depending on which I was doing. And at the time, I didn't have a job, I didn't have kids, you know, I didn't have any distractions whatsoever. And you know, that's not a situation that most people are in, that very few people are in. And I had the resources. I was able to you know, do meal prep, and a lot of that stuff starts to add up. You spend a few grand on a trainer, or a couple grand a month on food, or a couple grand a month just staying in a like an extended stay, or you know, one of those type of kitchenette hotels across from the gym that you train at, and go there twice a day, you know, 6 days a week, and sleep 9 hours a night, and take a nap after every workout, and eat 8 meals a day, and have grass-fed steak. And yeah, you know, you're going to realize a benefit from that that a lot of people, you know, probably can't fit into their schedule or their cost restrictions. Now, when I was in college, you know, I remember I used to have to pack my food. I'd eat in class. I'd have to train at 5 a.m. in the morning because I had to work at night. I'd work construction. So, you know, I remember what that was like, but I wasn't as successful then. And when I talk about success, I didn't realize as the benefits, as much gains. I wasn't as strong, I wasn't as big, because I had all those other restrictions, those time constraints, and inability to eat as much food as often, to sleep as much, to train as much. And so, you know, when I talk to people about what it took to become a pro bodybuilder, or what it took, or what it takes to become a world record powerlifter, I'm talking about things that might not be within the capabilities, you know, financial or time constraints of a lot of other people. And in that sense, you know, kind of hypocritical, I think.
Yeah, I definitely see that. I'll counter that point though, because yeah, not everybody can do that, and but there's a spectrum, right? There's a spectrum of that, and people that just really get excited and say they want to do something, but don't really prioritize it and actually make it happen in their life. Because you know, for a number of years, I was doing work in the corporate executive world, like very time challenging, mentally, you know, emotionally, like very involved work, own the gym, coaching, family, like all this stuff. And people would always come to me like, how do you do all that? I'm like, well, look at your life and define, you know, what are the top 3 or 4 priorities for you? Like, really. And now everything that you do every day, so you have lesser priorities than other people, but you made it a priority. So there's a lot of people without a job that don't accomplish jack shit. So
there'll always be sacrifices.
So there's a spectrum, and you've got to sacrifice. Guess what? You're not going to be watching football on Sunday. No. You're not going out with your friends on Friday night.
No.
You're not watching Friends on Wednesday or Thursday or whenever that was. You're not, you know, like, and some of these people will still do that, and then come to the gym and say, well, you know, I couldn't, you know, I missed this session because of this or that, or you know, work's really challenging right now, and so there's a spectrum, and I think the thing is, you've got to look at those priorities.
I agree.
Like I said, you were very clear and disciplined about what your priority was, and you made every hour of every day count towards that.
Yeah. There's always sacrifices. You know, you can be great at anything, but you can't be great at everything. And so something's going to get sacrificed. You know, now that I have kids, you know, I wouldn't be willing to make that sacrifice again. I already understand that. So you're going to make a comeback, you're going to do bodybuilding. I'm like, no, because I understand the time commitment that it takes. And that time's got to come from somewhere. And I'm not taking it from my kids. And so, you know, a lot of people who are competing right now have full-time jobs, and they have kids, and they compete at a very high level. And my hat's off to them. They're very disciplined, they're very consistent, and that's what it takes, that's what it requires. It can't be, you know, kind of both ends against the middle. people ask me all the time, you know, when they contact me about doing a program for them, you know, am I going to have to give up my beer? Or I like to go out every Friday night, and I have to chuckle a little bit, and I have to realize, okay, well, maybe this guy isn't trying to be a pro bodybuilder. Maybe he's not trying to be a world record powerlifter. And that's cool, because that's most people.
Yep.
And so when I design programs, I really try and design them to fit the lifestyle, because it's a marathon, not a sprint. It has to be part of something that you can maintain within the constraints of your existing lifestyle. And that includes your diet, includes how many hours you can commit to the gym. And I just try and find out, what can you commit to that's not a sacrifice, that you can maintain, that's consistent, that you can earn and own. You know, it's not temporary. And then design it for that.
That is really what people have to do when I talk about the prioritization, because I was very focused on some things that most people probably aren't going to try to work to that level in their life.
Right.
And they're different. Okay, I get it. You didn't want it, you don't have the same goals as I do.
You might just want to be jacked and tan. You know, and that's enough. They don't have set records. Nobody chasing the Lana check.
Exactly.
You know?
But you know, that lifestyle piece, and this is what I preach to people all the time that ask me for diet advice. I'm like, well, there is no such thing really as a diet, unless you're unless you're doing like prepping for a show, or like in my case, like once a year, I'll lean out and do some photo shoots.
And you understand it's not
marketing
material.
material.
Going in, you already understand it's not sustainable.
But outside of that, like, there shouldn't be a diet. Gotcha. It is a life. Like, you need to figure out, the perfect diet may not be what's for you. You have to figure out what fits your lifestyle. Yeah. But that falls back to that prioritization discussion, because your priorities have to fit your lifestyle as well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so people really, I don't think, do enough diligence of really understanding what's important to them and then meshing that with what their lifestyle is.
And by the same token, some people do way more than is necessary and might not be getting any significant return from all that other stuff. Because like we talked about before, I didn't have the internet when I started training. And so I didn't have access to all this great information that's out there now. But I also wasn't burdened by all this crappy information that's out there now. And there's a lot of people doing a lot of things that are really a waste of their time.
Oh yeah.
And so if you get in with somebody and you can take a look at the whole of what they do, you can usually find places where their time's wasted, so they don't have to invest any additional time. They just need to optimize what's working and add to that.
Yep.
So I think there's a lot of ways to save time and money, because people spend a lot of money doing things that are a waste as well. When you can get in and manage someone's program with all the knowledge that we've acquired over the years.
Yeah, and that's, I really like to make that point, because I see people do this, or I see a lot of trainers, coaches deal with this, where they come in and they analyze, and develop a plan, just like you're talking about for a client, and then they'll come back and say, oh yeah, but I read this article by such and such over here about these concepts. Yeah. Can we incorporate that in the plan? And can we incorporate this? And I'm like, if you're investing the time, everything has to work together, and there's a reason behind it. So if you're hiring, a qualified professional that's not just an Instagram hero, follow them.
And that's a good point. There's many paths that can take you to the same destination. And I always talk about my path, and the path that I've seen work for athletes that I've trained. But everybody's different. They respond differently. They can take a different path and still get there. But you can't take 5 paths at once. That's the problem. You don't get a cherry pick all the shit that you like from 6 different people and expect to be able to hobble that into some sort of successful program. It doesn't work that way. If you like something else, try that later, but put 6 to 8 weeks into this to see if it works.
I say 6 to 12 months myself.
Well, yeah, at the very least. I'm just talking about a brief hypertrophy program or a brief strength program to find out if something actually gives you an effect. You got to analyze it in periods like that. You can't go changing everything every workout. You can't change your diet every week. It just
training ADHD. We see that all the time.
Yeah.
So, and that's, you've got to, I talk about this in the, you've got to be thoughtful. You've got to be analytical. You've got to do your research. You've got to do your diligence. There's so much information out there, but you can't lose your bias for action. You've got to get in the trim and train. Like, you can't, you can sit there and think about it and read articles all day long and then go and play with it for this one for a week and that one for a week. No, take action, but be consistent with that action for a period of time.
And that's important.
Because you've got to learn how it works for you.
You've got to learn how it works for you. And you can't find that out unless, if you have so many variables, how do you know which one was responsible for any progress or lack of progress? I've had the opportunity in my career to work with some of the greatest people, and you know, either directly with or was training with someone who was working directly with some of the biggest names in the business, all the gurus, from Chris Aceto to Oscar. Had a lot of good information from Hani. Flex Wheeler, obviously, was one of the greatest influences in my career. Charles Glass, you name it. Those are the, I just named out, you know, Dave Palumbo. I've worked with all these people, either directly or with my training partner at the time. And I never pieceworked whatever it is they were doing. We stayed with that block for at least 6 to 8 weeks to see if we could gain a benefit from it. And then in terms of powerlifting, you know, I spent a summer out with Eddie Cohn. I worked obviously with Mark Bell, who was the hugest influence in my training. But I did what, you know, we collaborated together, you know, with constant feedback, and we did that together throughout the whole program. And so I've had the opportunity to do a lot of things, but I didn't do them all at once.
Yeah, you didn't say, well, Mark, I'm training, but I've been reading the Starting Strength book, and I really want to incorporate some changes in my squat technique based on that. And no, stick with, because there is a plan, and all that stuff works together.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I think your analogy of the 5 different paths is fabulous. Like, each of those paths can get you there. Maybe one's more efficient than the other. You'll never know because everybody walks a different, different pace. But you can't take all 5 at once. Yeah,
you have to take control of your own destiny ultimately by utilizing all this knowledge and figure out what works for you. I'm the guy that I track everything. You know, every single day I got an Excel spreadsheet for how I was training, what I was eating, you know, what my body weight was, what my strength was like. I'm just all the time. I still do it.
I said mine goes back over a decade. I got the same Excel spreadsheet.
Yes.
And here's the supplements I was using. Here's my morning body weight. Here's my measurements.
All that stuff, and you know how it works. People generally come up and they want to show me their workout plan. You know, their sets and reps for the last year. And I look at that and I'm like, well, okay, I can see what you broke down here, but I can't see what you built up. I can't see what your sleep patterns look like. I can't see what your nutrition looks like. I can't see what your body weight, how it fluctuates. I can't see any of your supplementation. I don't see anywhere where you built muscle. All I see is where you broke it down. The workouts to me are way down on the list of importance in terms of the type of training that you do. I always try and prioritize all the things that make you able to train harder and better. Obviously the sleeping and the eating and supplements, nutrition, all the stuff outside the gym. And I told you yesterday, I spend more hours now outside the gym preparing my body so I can train than I spend actually training. And because I love to train, but I want to train healthy. I don't want to be all broken up. So outside the gym, I'm doing the ART. We're utilizing, like we did yesterday with the boomstick, to make sure that the joints are, you know, pliable and they move, and I don't have, you know, the aggravations from these injuries. You know, I utilize active recovery techniques, you know, on almost a daily basis. I talk about doing push-ups every day. We talk about doing the recumbent bike under a little bit of tension, some of the hip work that people have seen come out. That's just all about, you know, I train with the 20s that people see all the time because I want to have, you know, a great oxygen capacity. I want to have a higher blood volume. I want to have, you know, I want to recover faster. And so I utilize all these things, and it adds up to a lot more time outside the gym than inside the gym. Just so I can do this little 15-second Instagram video with 140-pound dumbbells. Nobody sees what's behind that. All the hours of work, you know, the mobility stuff to keep healthy.
Because even, like people will watch my YouTube or my Instagram, and I'm like, oh, I don't ever see you doing this or this. I'm like, well, I do publish a full written training log, but then I think about it, and I'm like, even on that, I don't include like all the other stuff. Like, when I'm rehabbing an injury, I may be doing like 4 different training sessions a day. Like when I was, even when I was doing the corporate executive, it'd be at my desk. I'd be back there doing goblet squats and rear leg elevated split squats, and go down into the warehouse with a band on my shoulder, and like whatever I had to do to make that happen. And it adds up to a lot of time if you want to make it happen. But at the same time, people always come, how do you recover so fast? How do you do? And then you'd give them the plan, and oh, well, I didn't have time, or I didn't da-da-da.
Well, and I get it.
It takes work.
It takes work. And it's stuff that I don't like to do. You know, I don't like doing mobility, and I use that word, everybody has a different interpretation of what mobility is, but I don't like doing kettlebell, you know, sit-downs here, plie sit-down. I don't like doing that stuff, but I have to if I want my hips to be pliable and if I want to squat without pain. I don't like going to ART, you know, and it hurts when people are in there digging around and moving my joint. I don't like doing it necessarily, but I have to, because if I want to train So I actually went out and hired Mark Philippi. I got a video on the internet showing that I went to him, and people in your area should come to you because it forced me to spend that hour and that money and that, you know, and create that. It was to a point where I had 2 MRIs on my hip by 2 different surgeons who told me I needed hip replacement surgery. He said, "Oh, you're screwed, you'll never squat again." And so I reached out to Eddie Cohn, and Eddie said, "You know, you ought to look up Mark Philippi. He does a lot of good stuff with rehab." And, you know, he has to, because he busted himself up so damn many times. You know, you can see him folding all in half, and, you know, surgeries and everything else. He's had to be pretty damn good at taking care of his body because that was so, you know, he suffered from so many different injuries over the course of his pro strongman career. And I would go in there and he would spend a full hour with me, initially twice a week, doing stuff I hated to do, but he made me do it. You know, a lot of the stuff that we've been doing here today and people should do, I didn't like doing it. But it was after that point, after working with Philippi and after having the hips in such bad shape that I could hardly sleep at night because of throbbing pain. I couldn't sit in the car, I couldn't sit in the theater. It hurt so bad, I was limping. You know, I thought, I'm going to get surgery. I even asked Eddie who his doctor was. I was going to go over and get surgery. And within
Finland or wherever.
Within 90 days of working with Philippi on this whole program. And I've had a few big-time lifters reach out to me, Blaine Sumner, who had a similar problem, and then implemented all these techniques outside the gym, who then could squat again. It was after that point that I squatted 900 in the gym and I squatted 865 on the platform. It was after all of the hip problems.
Right. Yeah, I remember.
Not before.
No.
You know.
I remember talking to you about those hip problems years ago.
And I said, I'm done. You know, my hips, I can't squat anymore.
Yep.
And it turns out that I wasn't anywhere near done. I was just a little bit irresponsible, a little bit lazy about my...
Well, I'm going to throw in a plug for my new movement website here. So
your stuff's good stuff.
Kabuki.ms. You know, one of the things that we really approach, and you've probably seen this with the shoulder rock and some of just the boomstick work that we did yesterday, is we really focus on efficiency.
Yeah.
So we take a lot of these evidence-based methods and distill them down and refine them for the strength athlete so that you're not spending 45 minutes, you're spending 5 minutes or 10 minutes, very specific, because we want people, they don't have the time that we have to go, oh, let's do 2 hours of prep work and then on an off day before the next day. And I want people to be able to prep and ready to train in 10 minutes. Yeah. And so we've got a really unique method. Check it out, subscription-based website, $10 a month, incredible resource. We try to make that, so also it's 2 things. Is one, we want great content. We want good quality information for both coaches, trainers, and athletes. But we wanted a low-cost model so that it's a kind of a self-help website. We do have a forum where my staff answers questions and whatnot on there. Sure. But it's very cost-effective for somebody to go in there, try the methods, and put them in use, and spend just a few bucks, and not have to go somewhere. And then if they need to do that, they can always take that step. But it gives them that interim option.
And also it's an opportunity to go in and see, if there's a particular exercise or movement that you like people to do, you demonstrate it for them. It's really easy, to follow it. There's some keys here, and people, they get done watching this, and they might not have real solid basic information to move. What can I do right now? Yep. And I think what's really important, we talked about it, one, eliminate the stimulus that's causing the problem. If squatting like this is causing elbow pain, you got to stop squatting like that. You got to address the source of the problem. 2, you got to stop putting ice and taking anti-inflammatories on things. It prevents healing. Stop doing that. It actually hinders the recovery response time. 3, active recovery. Every day, you got to put those joints. Anytime you immobilize a joint, it atrophies and it loses range of motion.
Movement is king.
Movement's king. Put a cast on something and it gets worse, not better.
Exactly.
So you have to keep moving it. And that includes just laying down is immobilization. Not only does it prevent the lymphatic system from pumping all the shit out, and so it just sits there and festers and you don't actually get the benefit of the recovery, but you don't have any mobility going on. So you gotta have movement. Don't just lay down. Get on a little recumbent bike. A lot of the things Chris talks about on his site about all the active recovery methods that he does. ART and stuff like that to keep the joints pliable. One of the big ones, and your shoulder rock's huge for this in terms of you can't start limiting your range of motion to avoid the pain, because then atrophy again. You're immobilizing it. You're self-immobilizing it. And when Eric Spoto had his surgery on his shoulder, they sent him home with a machine that did this for 4 hours and moved it through its range of motion. How many times do you do this? When you have an injury, And the answer is usually 0.
Yep.
You know, they'll go in and work out, and then they'll be like this for the next 2 days with their shoulder bending out. Oh, it goes numb when I'm asleep. Move it around. A shoulder rock moves that through the whole range of motion. A massage is superficial and it's temporary. Something like the shoulder rock actually gets all the muscles involved and starts, you know, creating the flexibility.
And that's what we try to create with our movement system is a lot of it goes back to like, how do you fix the movement that's causing it to begin with? Like you said, you know, the bar is causing it, eliminate that. If it's your posture, like a lot of times you know, the tightening around the joint, the lack of mobility, I call triage. We talked about this a bunch yesterday. It's triage treatment. You're gonna have to go stretch because you can't get in position to squat. Well, you shouldn't be doing that every workout. Something's wrong with your squat that's making the body start protecting itself in tightening up.
Tightening up. And hip problems can generally be because of a tight glute. You know, there's things that you have to understand.
And then
some of this gets into needing some help. We're trying to hit some basic things and let people know that they have to take personal action at least to get, you know, part of the way there. But, and then reach out to someone. You know, Chris has done a great job. One of the pioneers, I think, of bringing this kind of stuff to powerlifters. So, you know, people should reach out to you and find out, you know, how to get started down this program, and they need to implement. So I know we're running long. Sorry, I'm long-winded, but
no, it's been a really good discussion. I've enjoyed talking about lifestyle, training, and recovery, and I'm hoping and I believe people get a lot out of this discussion. So I appreciate the time, Stan, and thank you.
Thanks.
If you want to maximize your strength and the longevity of your athletic career, or just support the production of further content, click on this video to the link to our store to check out our full line of products.